Bossman. The clock's ticking.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Tube, your one-stop shop for entertainment, movies, and reviews. Today we've got Reverend Jake,
Hey guys, how's it going?
and always lovely Zamario. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Now, today we're going to be doing a review of the Netflix series that came out, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, Sandman. Now, Sandman, for those of you who don't know, is based upon the very critically acclaimed and very successful Sandman graphic novel made by Neil Gaiman. Now, I have actually read these books, so that's I actually have familiarity with the source material. But I'll go to my two co-hosts to see what familiarity they have with the source material. So, Reverend Jake, did you read Sandman at all when you were younger, or is it something that is your book collection, shall we say?
No, I actually not familiar with the property. Honestly, sadly, not familiar with a lot of Neil Gaiman's properties. But this came highly recommended, and so I thought I'd give it a shot and give it a watch.
Sam, have you read Sandman at all? And the books, or were you?
My earliest reference to Sandman, and it wasn't from any of the books, was an episode of the Real Ghostbusters from back in the day, and the Sandman, he was causing proper havoc to everybody. He made the entire city of New York go to sleep, and it was really difficult to fight him. And his dreams would then come alive. The people's dreams would come alive whilst they were sleeping. But then Janine, when she had the sands blown on her and she fell asleep, she dreamt to be a Ghostbuster. And so because she was a Ghostbuster in a dream, she was able to take down the Sandman. And that's the only fucking recollection I have of the Sandman. It was from the Real Ghostbusters. I know that's a bit sad, but that's how it is. I mean, I do know about him in other media as well, but that was the first one, and that's the one that sticks in my fucking mind.
Okay, so it looks like I'm the only one who actually read the actual books. But saying that though, I'm going to go to you guys because I think because I actually read the property, I probably have a different appreciation for the series than you guys do. So, as brand new, I know, enjoyers of this particular world, what did you think? So, we'll go to Zam first. What did you think of Sandman the series overall?
All right, for a start, there was a part. I think there was only one American actor in this show. I think everyone else was a Brit pretending to be an American. And the actor who was it Caribbean? He was the American actor. But I've seen him in other properties. But also, like, there were some things that was always taking me out. Like, this ain't fucking America. This is England pretending to be fucking America. You know, the amount of times I'm thinking it was that's a British street, and you're trying to make it look like a fucking American street by sticking an old-fashioned fucking mailbox outside. I ain't fucking buying it. And the amount of times they had to do, like, even I have to say that the shot on the beach wasn't too bad, but even that was a British beach. And there was a time when we saw earlier in one of the more central episodes where David Thewlis's character was in a cafe, and he's fucking with everyone in the cafe. And then in the latter episodes, we go to an Alabama cafe. And it's the same fucking cafe, you know what I mean? It's not they're using the same sets and the same properties and everything. I was like, come on, you know. I found it a bit weird that sometimes they almost had this childlike sort of Harry Potter sort of mystique about it, but then they're effing and jeffing it in other moments. We get characters like Cain and Abel, and then we don't fucking see Cain and Abel anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell? You know, it was weird. Joanna Constantine, fuck you, Constantine. We're done with you. Like, you know, like people are coming in, people are coming out. The character Desire seemed more satanic than Satan himself, and even he was just a bit part player in it. You know, he seemed, you know, somebody who would have an influence in all of this, and then the whole like fucking Dream Vortex. It was like a load of bollocks. Stephen Fry, what the fuck are you doing in this show, man? You really pissed me off the whole time I saw you on screen. I didn't like you there. You're a fucking place, not a person. What the fuck? Like, honestly, it just honestly, like, this show was a serious head fuck. and not necessarily in a good way. I do like this sort of confusing craziness and stuff like that, but I don't think all of it worked. Not all of it worked. It had its foot in many, a finger in many different pies, but not all of it came together.
Okay, Jake, what did you think of this series as a brand new enjoyer of the series? Hopefully,
kind of, a little bit the same and a little bit of contrast from what Sam had just said. I really think that when it did its weird fuckery is when it was at its best. The idea that a place was acting to be a person, I thought that was actually kind of elegant and interesting. I like that. Though I have to say, kind of like Sam was saying, it's got its fingers in every hole it can find. And it feels like this suffers from an adaptation issue. It's the exact opposite of the Lord of the Rings Hobbit movies, where they just tried to expand it. I feel like this would be instead as if they tried to take both the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit and put it into one 10-hour television show. Too many storylines going on. And so I feel like the season really should have wrapped when they finally found the guy who was screwing the people at the diner. I felt that right there was the natural end to a season, and then things happening with the vortex and more in the Corinthian could have continued into a second season. Instead, it's like it doesn't know where it wants to stop. And I've heard from some of the interviews that they've really tried to focus on putting putting like a dream spin onto it, like they mess with aspect ratios oddly so that you don't really know what's going on there, and things like that. And I think that's fine for some things, especially if you want to flitter between scenes like they're a dream. But I don't feel like mixing the storylines like that really worked. So that was one thing I didn't like. The other thing, going along with that is I hated Desire. I didn't feel that was an accurate representation of Desire, and maybe that has to do with my own sexual preferences. But I didn't feel that he, was anything more than a cheap ploy at sexual desire. I don't think that he encompassed all of what Desire really is, nor did his weird red lip love palace. And so I had a lot of issues with that. It may be comic accurate or not, I don't really know, but just from a story perspective, these are the areas that really fell flat for me. So we'll get into more detail, I'm sure. So
I just want to throw in like that serial killer convention with the cereal instead of cereal. Clever but stupid at the same time. There was one thing I genuinely liked was, I think it was episode 6, where he gave this guy in eternal life and he met him every 100 years. But then where did that go? You know what I mean? After that one episode of having that, we're going to have a drink in the pub every 100 years. It went nowhere. What was the point of it?
And that's exactly what I was getting at. Like, this stuff doesn't, they shrink wrap it too much and condense too much, and nothing's really going on.
Okay, so I've actually read the books. So what of the stuff you guys are talking about are actually in the books. They're responding about a little bit than what the others, because that's one thing that I didn't like about the series. If we're going to go to negatives first, is they seem to condense stuff too quickly, rather than like expand it on and let it build naturally like it does in the books. The thing is that you're always going to have to compress a little bit when you change it from a book to a series. But I did feel that it was a little bit, rushed in a way. But I did like most of the stuff they did. Like, for example, I'm going to get to the positive now. I love what they did with Death. I thought Death was great. I mean, the stupid racists out there were going, I hate the fact it's a black woman, because in the comics it's a evil-looking white woman. But this I don't really care, because she was sweet, she was attractive, she was kind, she was sort of like
comforting.
She was kind of like Florence Nightingale-esque, in that she was like the last thing they see, when the best episode for me, and I disagree with what you're saying, was the death episode, because when we see her going around, like the first minute she goes to that old man who's there playing the violin or whatever he is playing, and she's there going, he goes, "Do you know who I am?" It's like, and he goes, "No." It's just like, and he just dawns on him. It's like it's time, and then literally like, it says, and he says like a Jewish prayer, and then like death goes around. A dream goes around the corner, and you see him take it up. I mean, that was great. And then we see him take a baby. It's like, oh, all you get is this, and like a guy she met before. She met that, and just all this thing is just it was a really really well done.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt
So,
real quick. That triggered me. Like being the dad of a newborn who had complications, that was really hard. Even having you mention it again, it's hard. It's
yeah. I mean, again, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but it triggered me as well.
Man, we get into spoilers, dude. But we just spoiled the fuck out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, my personal issues again were because I've had losses in my family of something that was that age. So, like, it brought that back for me, whichever. But but he did it in a really tasteful way, if you know what I mean. It wasn't exploitative, if you know what I mean. And that was they could have got that so wrong if they got the delivery wrong, if that makes sense.
The theme.
She was perfect for it. I also loved, Julie Richardson. My God, does she not age? I mean, like, she's got to be like, 50s, if not 60s?
I think she's 57. I think she's 57.
My God, she looks the same.
Yeah, I checked. Yeah.
She looks more or less the same. Anyway, she's great. Joanna Constantine, I was absolutely wrong because she was brilliant. When she was doing the whole incantation thing, that was really great. I really loved that, and I loved her in it. I mean, I wish she was in it more, but I loved her, and I loved her coming back. Joanna Constantine, her ancestor, I like that as well. And I also like the fact that they alluded to the fact that she's bisexual, like she like Johnson Constantine is in the books. I like that. But I mean, I do understand because you guys are totally new. I think it could have done a lot more to bring in new people because again, I understand what he's trying to do because he's trying to do what's in the book. Fiddler's Green is a person, is a thing that becomes a person in the book, but that existential thing is more explored in the books than it is in the series, and I think that not to speak for you guys, and again, I don't like doing that, but I think that was a thing that kind of was a put off for you because it wasn't kind of explored enough like it is in the books. Is that fair, or would you say that's not unfair?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's largely, and again, Sam, to speak for yourself, but my issue with it is that it's too condensed. You introduce these characters that are really interesting, you like them, you want to spend more time with them, whether it's the Verdant Green in his human form, or if it's Death, or Cain and Abel. I could continue on with all of these characters that were really great. You want to spend more time with them, but they don't get enough screen time and introduce too many. It's too many plot lines, and they jump from one plot line to the next, to the next, to the next, and yeah.
I used to like Stephen Fry, but honestly, looking at him now, like there's no other role he should play in the future but Santa Claus. And so seeing him doing this particular role, I just did it. I wasn't feeling it. I really it felt he can do this, like very eloquent, polite, sort of British sort of character to a degree. But if they could, and if they could afford him, I would like to see maybe someone like Hugh Grant in that role. You know what I mean? Not Stephen Fry, for fuck's sake. I liked him more in The Hobbit. He was brilliant in that. You know what I mean? As the horrible mayor. But this time around, I just wasn't feeling this particular performance. It just wasn't. It just didn't work for me. And he's like a semi-national treasure because he's kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit in my eyes, to a degree, with some of his political opinions. But I don't want to get into that. But regardless, he's not too much of a big deal because when he did come on the scene and he saved when he saved Rose, I thought, where the fuck is this guy now? And next thing you know, he's become like a dad who like drives his daughter to a convention in Georgia. I mean, that was really it. And then he sees Caribbean and does nothing about it. You know, just shuts his mouth and fucks off back to Dreamland without even warning Rose. It's just stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, that's one thing that annoyed me was the Corinthian. The thing is, the fact that he's got teeth for eyes is a big reveal. Like, for example, like when he takes his glasses off, he always takes his glasses. He always does like kind of like hints that he's got teeth for eyes in the books until like right at the end when Dream is confronted, then he turns up, and actually the eyes actually speak. In this, I don't think they actually say a word, which is really annoying because he actually speaks like in like a united voice and stuff like that. It's really creepy.
I think they pointlessly chomp.
Yeah, I he eats eyes as well, which is kind of weird. I mean, he does that in the book as well.
I think what this is like Netflix trying to really get its money's worth from trying to deliver as many episodes as possible, but you could see that this show was seriously stretched out, you know, in every element possible, right down to the bit where like the only way they could connect what was happening in the second half of the series to the first half was it Uniclad? What was her name? The old black lady who was asleep for like most of her life.
Unity Kincaid.
Unity Kincaid, yeah. Yeah, that was really the only connection to the earlier parts of the episodes of the show, really. And you know, I mean, it was good to see Charles Dance in it as well, and you know, he was dead in the first episode, which is fair enough. All right, that's a bit of a shock, a bit of a Game of Thrones sort of move you're doing there and stuff like that. But yeah, like you have all these characters, but they're not reoccurring, and that was my problem with it to a degree. Like we've got to learn who this person is. We've got to learn who this person is. Like the only person who coming back was the librarian. Yeah, that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, most of this stuff is in the books. As I said, the whole thing with Rose and the whole thing about what happens in the dream is an entire story arc in the books. I don't know why they condensed it so much in the.
Well, I think so. Let me flip this around on you then, Gary, since you've actually read the books. Do you think they cut too much?
Yes.
Based on what is in the books?
Yes, because that whole thing with Rose is an entire like 4 or 5 like 2-3 books worth of stuff. I mean, I'm trying to remember how many books. It's at least one book, if not more. So they've tried to cram that into one series. And like the whole thing with the 24-hour diner, where he's in the diner for 24 hours. That's an entire arc. That's an entire book as well.
Bloody hell.
They could have stretched that out. They could have really stretched it out, because the thing is, the person with the amulet, do you know who he's supposed to be? Dr. Destiny.
Who?
Okay.
From
DC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's Dr. Destiny. He's the
Similar,
new version of Dr. Destiny. Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is that I mean, I kind of liked that opening first couple of bits. Like I enjoyed him being in the bowl and getting out and stuff like that. The only problem was that in the thing in the book, he doesn't just send that guy to eternal sleep. He's turned to eternal waking. So that means that he has a nightmare and he wakes up all the time from this nightmare and he can never get out of it. It's like a cycle. It's basically like it's like torture. It's like one of the most fucked up things he does in the book. The thing is that Corinthian's arc is an entire, I think, about 2 or 3 books, because we get introduced to him that he's gay and he's a gay serial killer and all this sort of stuff, and it's just like we don't know what he does with the eyes and stuff like that. That's the entire arc as well. And I think they, as I said before, they've rushed too much of it. They've condensed too much into 5 books rather than letting these things set and build up the lore in a way. They not build up, people's, because you two have no. I mean, I know this stuff because I've actually read the books. You two have no impact with the books. On no understanding, so therefore you guys are lost. You guys are like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, but I can still gather it without having to read the book. But sometimes um, an exact characterization of the book is not always the best way to go for
No,
screen.
I know so.
Yeah, like there's lots of adaptations of books which are pretty much nothing like the book when they put it on screen. And to a degree, what they need to do was make it something. I'll give you an example, like the show Invincible. Have you seen that by any
Yeah,
chance? It follows some of the themes from the book without it being or the comic without it being a like for like for the comic, and it just ended up being its own thing. Same with the boys. It followed themes from the comic books without it being its own, but without it being a like for like, and it just ended up being its own thing. And both those shows have benefited themselves by being its own thing. And this particular series needed to be its own thing. Like take elements, take inspiration and create a unique story without having to be like for like from the books. That's what I think it should have been, and then I would have probably enjoyed it a lot more.
I think the only problem with that is it's. Could you imagine if Lord of the Rings would have done that?
To a degree, Lord of the Rings did that. They took out elements, like there's no Bombadil or whatever the fuck his name is, and Sauron never took over the Shire at the end, but they did elements. Yeah, like what's his name? Carl Urban's character. He was on the Battle of Helm's Deep, but in this one, in the film version, he came to the rescue at the end of the Battle of Helm's Deep with Gandalf. There were certain differences to a degree, but we are once again, like they did have 3 movies. They were able to stretch out certain things to a degree, and it worked. I mean, I would say Lord of the Rings is almost the exception to the rule. But this particular time, when you got 10 fucking episodes, you got more time even to play with, and somehow it wasn't enough, I guess, which is a bit weird, or maybe it was too much. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
but yeah, I mean, what I thought was really good about the series in particular was how it it kind of did it did kind of reduce things with time, but it did rush things. But I think what the story tried to tell was a little bit of the Corinthians arc, like the Corinthian being somebody that he was dealt with at the end, that Dream dealt with at the end and was like causing all sorts of havoc, and like the fact that Rose, this flaming Dream vortex, and was on Earth and was unleashed and stuff like that. I mean, when we found out that she was birthed from what's it called, from desire and stuff like that. Because as I said, the only thing that I kind of would have changed personally, again, this is nothing against Gwendolyn Christie because she's a lovely lady and a great actress, is I'd have Tom Ellis as back as Lucifer because that
Tom
that guy.
Ellis. I need to Google. His name escapes me.
I don't know who that is, but yeah, I didn't.
Tom Ellis is he's the one who plays Lucifer in the show.
I love Gwendolyn Christie, but she.
Oh yeah.
In this role, I didn't.
No, you can't have him. You cannot have Tom Ellis. You can't have a guy who's already playing the devil in one show to play the devil in another show.
But he played it in the exact same universe. He played it in DC.
Yeah, but this is not DC. I mean, you have Joanna Constantine, not John Constantine. It's like it's a different thing. You know what I mean? So,
but I thought I did think she was good at it because she was because she's a tall, very intimidating looking woman. I mean, I think she's even taller than the guy who plays Dream in it. I mean, I thought he was really good at it. I mean, because I thought he played Dream how he's in the books, which is like this sort of like a very strong but very austere person.
Well, yeah, I mean, the movie industry is very lucky to have a lady who's over 6 foot tall who can act. Honestly, I mean, there's not many of them around. Trust me. So I'm very happy that we got like someone like Gwendolyn Christie involved in television, and she made a great Captain Phasma. Unfortunately, she was just poorly used in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But regardless, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent.
But yeah, as I said, but I will say that the casting on this show was really good. As I said, the person who played Death was amazing. I know that there's going to be stupid racists out there who are going to say, "Oh, she's a black woman," but I don't care. She was very attractive. She was very caring. As I said before, she was very nurturing. I like as I said, the bit the bit at the end when she kind of like she sees a guy and then like she sees him again when he comes out when he comes out he says you need to come with me. And says, well, I need to come to the fight. He said, no, you need to come with me. And it's like, I mean, then we see his body getting dragged out of the surgery. It's like,
Yeah.
that was kind of hard to take, you know what I mean? Because like, because like it was a sweet episode, but it was kind of a hard to watch episode, if that makes sense. And that's why, in my personal opinion, it's the best one. Because it's hard to.
No, just a couple of things. First of all, this particular show, if you're a member of the fandom menace, this show would have triggered you beyond belief. Multiracial cast, multi-sexual cast as well, possibly a transgender character too. But they should have been a bit happy because that particular transgender character, Desire, seemed like the villain, so that should have like made them happy to a degree. But regardless, there was a lot of boxes ticked in this, and I didn't mind it. But I just know there are a demographic of people that are going to hate on this show for not being fucking whiter than my sheets behind me, and basically having having token characters who probably get killed off or we don't see after 5 minutes because they're forgettable, But regardless of that, the main character who was a white male in Sandman was great, but that's the one person we haven't talked about is Sandman himself, and I've never seen this actor before. Looked fantastic, had a very. He almost had his whole appearance about him. He almost looked very birdish. He almost looked kind of satanic. At the same time, he looked very angelic. It's very goth-like as well. And the way he spoke as well. His performance, which he had to carry the show because he was in every episode, and he's the focus, was excellent. He had all of these tools, by the way. His fucking his bag of sand, his that helmet, which made him look like a witch doctor. Well, not a witch doctor. I forgot the name. What it's
Plague
called.
Doctor.
Plague Doctor. That's it. It made him look like a plague doctor, and his fucking ruby, and he had all of that shit. And then after a while, it didn't fucking matter anymore. Like, what I mean? It's like he needed all this shit. He got all of this shit, and then he wasn't using that. Once he got it, he wasn't really using it anymore. So, yeah, bollocks to some of it. But the actor, his name escapes me. Maybe
Tom Storage.
Tall Storage.
No, Tom Storage.
Oh, Tom Storage. Sorry, my bad. Tom Storage. Yeah, excellent. I hope to see him in more stuff in the future. And this season has set up for a sequel as well. I haven't watched episode 11, by the way, because I did binge this shit. So I think, but I know episode 11's got nothing really to do with the main series. It's just a short story following
Too short.
Sandman. Yeah, 2 short stories. So yeah,
the first one, there's another trigger moment in the beginning of that one that just tugs at my heartstrings. It was super hard to watch. That's all I'll say about it.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, that kind of surprised me. I thought, yes, I've done it. I've done all 10 episodes. What? Episode 11? What the fuck?
So I'm going to ask a question to both of you that I probably know the answer to, but I'll ask it anyway. Has this series prompted you to maybe want to check out the comic book series?
No. I don't like comics in general, so it doesn't change my opinion on that.
Okay, I mean, this is like one of the best-selling comic book series of all time. It's up there with like Watchmen and stuff like that.
Look, my thing with Netflix is that they're a lot better with their original adaptations than they are copying other people's shit, in my opinion. Like Disney and Amazon, they're very good at with copying people's shit. But some of the stuff that they've copied in the past and they've tried to put it onto the screen hasn't been that great. But when some of the original stuff, like Stranger Things, which is just like, there was no other Stranger Things thing prior to them putting it on the screen. Brilliant. And there's possibly a couple of other things as well, which has slipped my mind at this particular moment in time. But yeah, I would say this though, I'm far enjoying this more than The Witcher. I hated The Witcher. It's so fucking shit. And it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know there are people who like it. Good for them. For me, it was a big pile of fucking shit. And that's why when season 2 came along, I haven't bothered with it. Don't give a fuck about it. Don't give a shit that Henry Cavill's in it. If a season 2 of the Sandman came along, I would probably watch it. This wasn't too bad. It wasn't great, but the thing with season 1s is that they can always rectify things with a season 2. So I'm hoping whatever mistakes they made in season 1, they can repair it in season 2. Unless you're fucking Picard, because Picard season 1 and Picard season 2 were fucking shit.
I want to build off what you said there, but really quickly, I want to clarify. There's nothing wrong with comics as a medium. I personally just feel like I fly through a comic book and then I'm done with it in like 5 minutes tops, and then so I personally don't enjoy it. I prefer written word, but there's nothing. I don't want to upset any of the comic nerds. There's nothing wrong with comics. I read plenty of X-Men when I was a kid, so there's nothing wrong with it. I just generally don't prefer it. But building off of what you were saying there, Sam, with there being enough for season 2, I actually wanted to ask you, Gary, since you've read all the books and you kind of have a better idea of the scope of where the entirety of the story goes, both, is there more books yet to come?
Yes.
And as a follow-up, if there is, do you think they can yet fix the mistakes that they've made this season with shrinking things? Can they re-expand Cain and Abel and Joanna Constantine and these characters that we like in season 2 in that material that's left over? Can they rectify it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they can, because there's a lot of material goes into sort of like it's not like. So yeah, I'm trying not to spoil it. I'll spoil it. Right. It's basically like this one where there's different like little stories, but some of it is tied to what's happened in season 1. Like, for example, do you know that bit where he's going through hell and then that woman comes out and says, and he plays like a black man.
Yeah. That scene was cool, man. When she married the princess, that was an awesome scene.
Yeah. He goes back for her because he feels guilty, and there's a whole story about that.
He feels guilty.
Yeah, he does. He feels guilty, because he feels guilty that he sentenced her to hell. So he goes back for her and stuff like that. That's good. There's other stories, like, for example, Shakespeare. He influenced was it Midsummer Night's Dream, and that's actually based on real people.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
He's actually going to do that there's an actual book of that. So that's another. So I think it's.
Yeah, but he did walk off with Shakespeare, so God knows how much time he spent with him.
Yeah.
So
there's going to be another bit with. There's going to be more with that. There's also going to be more with other stuff. So I think what they could do, is maybe do more with Lucifer's assault on Dream, on the Dream Kingdom and stuff like that. So that could be an entire arc of itself. And they just bring the stories back, maybe to give presents to maybe like things that Dream did to become better, and he can give more weight to the fight, as it were. So he gives people stakes of why he's doing this, and maybe he's fighting hell to get back that lady that we saw in that bit. So, as I said, those bits are in the book. As I said, it's diverged from the book quite a bit. As I said, that whole bit with Rose is totally different in the book. It has a little bit to do with the Corinthian, but not massively. The Corinthian's there on his own, and he has nothing, and he's not there with Rose at all. Rose is in a totally different book, entirely different thing, and with a totally different villain that I don't want to talk about in case they bring it in with this one. Sure. Because there's another villain called. I mean, I guess I'll bring up the villain's called the Cuckoo. So the Cuckoo is basically operating inside in a part of Dream that Dream hasn't managed to get to for a couple of thousand years because he's been trapped on Earth. So the Cuckoo is created a dream wave, and he's supposed to be corrupting Rose Tyler to get the vortex out of her. That's basically what it is. But she's trapped in the dream forever, and she doesn't get to go home. So I don't know what they're going to do now for it.
Well, watching this show and seeing everything that came from all this gothic look and stuff like that from it, it made me kind of realize that I would love to see an adaptation of Devil May Cry, which is one of my favorite video games from back in the day.
Yeah, I can see that.
Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 4 are pretty good. And I would love to see an adaptation of that, a good action series, with a guy who's half demon, half angel, yeah, that works for me. And this show's given me hope that one day that could happen. And I want it to be a series. I don't want it to be a fucking film. You know what I mean? I want character development. I want all the other characters like Virgil and Dante, and what's the other guy's name? I forgot his name. One who looks like Dante, and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, I want all of that. But anyway, I'm sorry. Once again, I'm just going on a tangent here. Should we start our ratings then?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to Jake. What would you give this out of 10?
Out of 10? Oh, I like judging things out of ponies, but let's go with. I'll give it I'm kind of torn between a 7 and 8, so I guess I'm going to go with a 7.5. Like I said, I think the jumping around really hurt it, but I think there's some beautiful imagery and conceptual pieces in here that I had a good time with. But really, just the plot's kind of everywhere.
Okay, Zab, what would you give this out of 10?
I wanted to like this more than I did, unfortunately. There were moments that I very much appreciated, and those scenes I very much liked. I think episode 6 probably is my favorite episode with Death, and it was such a simple episode, just walking around with Death, and she's killing everyone, and but in a polite, nice way, in a very humanitarian way, and then the meeting that guy every 100 years at a pub and having a drink with him and seeing how his life is going. And that was probably the most simplistic of all the episodes. And it was my favorite. And because it was episode 6, I'm going to give this show a 6 out of 10.
Okay. So it's out to be somebody who's actually a fan of the property. Out of 10, I'd give it a strong 7. A strong 7. Because even though they rushed it, there's things in it that were beautifully done, like the demon scene, like the death episode, like the episode that Sam just talked about with the guy who meets every 100 years. The bit with the dino was really well done. The Corinthian, I love the actor who played him, but he could have been more developed in my personal point of view. I didn't really get to know him as a person. So I'm hoping that this improves next season, and that we get to see Gwendolyn Christie's Lucifer, go at hell, go at heaven, and go at Flaming Tree.
Yeah, she opened up a rift in fucking Toon World, didn't she? You know what I mean? There's all those fucking cartoon eyes and teeth.
I loved that. That was so cool.
It reminded me of something. Was it? Is that film with Brad Pitt and Kim Basinger? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh, now. Cool World.
Cool World, yeah, it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, and a bit of Fritz the Cat thrown in there as well for old time's sake.
Oh, that's a very different movie.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, by the way, I love the fact that Desire was played by a non-binary actor, because Desire in the book is played androgynous, so it's good to see that he's been played by a non-binary actor. So that's very well done. But as I said, so they need to slow the pace down. I explain the story to people who are, because again, I know this stuff because I've read the books. You guys haven't, and it needs to be explained to people like yourself. But I can appreciate it for what it is. It needs to be more explained so that you're invested. Because the actors are doing really, really well with it. I mean, like Death is awesome. Sandman's awesome. I don't think there's a bad actor in this. I mean, even Patton Oswalt, who I usually don't like, is good enough.
I just next time, if you're going to pretend that you're going to be in America, don't pretend. Just do it. Go to America and film those scenes in America. Don't try to turn England into fucking America. No wonder that so many times they ended up in buildings and stuff like that, because they just knew that some of these places weren't going to be pulled off as America. And so that, and hire some American actors as well, not just the one. Because some of these British accents, so these British actors, sometimes their accent gave way a little bit. You must have noticed it, Jake. I mean, really?
I mean, sometimes, but I mean, as you talk about it, I think back to like the people at the hostel, and I mean, you have the weird girls using their kind of semi, UK accent of some kind that's weird, and then you got the guy, the main guy who owns the house. I think his accent sounded fine. I don't know if he was a UK guy or not. I don't really know.
I think Rose is. I might get totally wrong here, but I feel Rose was played by a British actress. I think.
Yeah,
I'll have a look at that. 1 second.
I can see that.
And some of the guys in the serial killer convention, their accent went a little bit here and there, and so on. But
honestly, it's like I completely forgot about the guy who we meet every 100 years until you just mentioned him a moment ago, because there's so many characters in this that are just here and gone that taking time to analyze their accents just doesn't even enter into it for me.
Highlander. I think I was getting Highlander vibes from that, when you're meeting a guy every 100 years. I guess it's just different for me because I just thought to myself, you guys ain't in America. This is a fucking set. This is not a real diner. This is a fucking set. You know what I mean? And you're purposely, like, for several episodes, there was no outdoor scenes in America. Like when David Thewlis's character escaped the mental asylum and he's on the streets and you see a couple of American-looking traffic lights and stuff like that, but there's nobody else around. You know what I mean? This is fucking New York, for fuck's sake. How can there be nobody else around? I've been to New York. There's a reason why they call it the city that doesn't fucking sleep. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like, come on, man.
None of the accents were as bad as Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, and that's kind of the thing. Like, I let a lot of stuff slip, and not just me too. For anyone who's ever watched any of the reviews that I've been a part of, I'm generally pretty much I'll let it go, I'll let it pass, unless it's really egregious. Like again, I had an okay time with Gods of Egypt, and that says a lot about what kind of crappy movies that I will enjoy. Because I mean, that movie is fucking terrible.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I mean, by the way, person who's really good at accents, who did a superb New York accent, Daniel Day-Lewis in Gangs of New York. He's an Irish actor.
Yeah.
He was like, I mean, I'm surprised
he's also
an Oscar for that role.
Possibly one of the most prolific actors of our time.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
So overall, we give this 8. Well, I give it a thumbs up. I assume the other two give it a thumbs up. Maybe,
well, it's better than 5, so I guess it does. Could be better though. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I did watch the whole fucking show, but there's room for improvement, which is why it only gets a 6.
Okay. Yeah. So, go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
No, it's good. I was going to say. Apparently, it sounds like Neil Gaiman was saying that this one might not have gotten enough attention to get a season 2. I'd seen some quote from him in some article that he didn't think that a season 2 was coming.
It seems to be quite popular. Like a lot of people who I watch on YouTube have reviewed this series. I just I watched it over the course of a week. I didn't watch it every day. I thought you guys were reviewing this tomorrow. So I was hoping to join them, but I still managed to squeeze in every episode today. So not bad. 4 episodes. And thank God they're not an hour long, because when I started noticing, 45 minutes and stuff, great. That gives me enough time to get some dinner in. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah, I'm fucking starving by the time I finish watching this shit. So, yeah.
I can't lie. I backgrounded some of it while I was working, and just because a lot of my as a developer, a lot of me, I'm just typing around, so I watch a lot of TV in the background, and and some of it was good enough to draw me away, but some of it wasn't. I rewatched parts of a couple of episodes, just because it was worth it. But yeah.
What were both your favorite episodes? As I said, I don't. In terms of said his, what were yours?
Episode 6.
I don't know the episode numbers, but yeah, I think the meeting the dude every 100 years, I think, was probably the most interesting episode. That or the one in the diner. those were both pretty good episodes.
That was like watching a play, the diner scene. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just sit in one room, just everyone there. It felt like watching a play and stuff like that. It was
But James
interesting.
Lewis was so good in that scene.
David Hughes is just a brilliant actor, man.
Is that the guy who was playing the dude
Ares?
with Jim?
Yeah.
Ares from Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I really like that actor.
Got his head chopped off in the remake of The Omen. Yeah, so
Yeah, so
he's a good actor.
Yeah, so any last thoughts before we finish?
Yeah, bring on season 2. I'm up for it. I'm always
Me
hoping.
too.
I'm hope, but would it get a bit? It's gonna be weird in the way like you want to keep it mystical and stuff like that, but you don't want it to get into the realms of being like superheroes and all of that sort of shit. You need to keep that balance and don't make like have some of these characters like stay for the course of the season, or if they're not, then kill them off. You know what I mean? If something like that, but I expected to see Cain and Abel come back, and they didn't. Like he was in, and also more scenarios in the dream world because there's more shit happening in the real world than there was in the dream world. Like this is the Sandman for fuck's sake. Get some craziness in the dreams. I want to see Sandman be like a Freddy Krueger at some stage. You know what I mean? So yeah, do some of that shit.
Cool. Jake, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but I don't think there's going to be a season 2. I don't think it was good enough for a season 2. I don't think they can. I just don't think it was good enough. I don't think they can kind of come back from introducing so many characters and having them do something to having a good season next season. And just with how many plot lines they jumbled, I feel like it's going to be more jumbled plot lines and half introduced characters next season. And I mean, I'll probably watch it because I'm a nerd and I want it to do well because I've got a lot of nerd friends who are invested in it. But I just meh on the properties, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. For me, I think there is. Hopefully, there's going to be season 2 because I really want to see it. Hopefully, they do enough in season 2. They live from the mistakes, as Sam was saying, and they make a good season 2 that brings in new viewers like yourselves. Because again, I'm already invested in it, but you guys aren't. So I think they need to do more of that if they want to continue doing what they're doing. Because I think that, I mean, not comparing it to another series, but The Boys is doing its own thing with regards to storylines. It's taking stuff from the books, but it's building its own lore sort of thing. If that makes sense. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. I mentioned that earlier, Bossman. Like be your own thing without having to be a carbon copy of the books, and then feel like you have to sacrifice shit here, there, and everywhere. To a degree, Game of Thrones, the original series, ended poorly because it rushed things and it tried to seal everything when there's at least 3 or 4 more seasons to give. So yeah, just be its own thing and don't be the books. Just use the book as an influence. That's it.
Okay. But that's all I've got to say, which is hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you guys will check out Sandman anyway. That's been the Tube, the greatest Tube you kind of sort of heard of at this point. See you later.
Bye bye.